Gun control. One of the most debatable topics around the world, debating whether or not crimes would increase if we limit the usage of guns in our own hands. Here, I'm going to be covering why heavily restricting firearms to civilians is not really a bright move and how they could be useful if they are executed properly. Before I get to analyze the arguments on guns, I believe it's important to talk about the Second Amendment, even though you already know what it's clearly about. The Second Amendment of the Constitution allows you the right to keep and bear arms. The Founding Fathers have kept the meaning vague on purpose because they know that it's clear that firearms will just eventually evolve generation by generation. They didn't specifically say muskets for that particular reason. Anyways, the whole purpose to why the Second Amendment allows you the right to bear arms is obviously for self-defense. It's your priority to neutralize the threat that tends to put your life in danger. Like if you were surrounded by 3 bandits with machetes cornering you in the dead-end alleyway. If you genuinely don't want to kill them, I'm sorry, but if it's between you or the threat, you 100% would choose yourself over that threat. So eventually, the Second Amendment offers you the permission to possess firearms as self-defense. So, for the first argument about guns has to do with how more access to guns result in an increase in gun deaths. Yeah, of course, more guns mean more gun deaths, but more knives also result in more knife deaths, and more cars result in more car deaths, and more fire results in more fire deaths. With that absurd logic, we should take cars and knives away from everyone because they result in more deaths. A gun is a tool that can be used for self-defense, just like how a knife is used to cut meat and a car is used for transportation. If it weren't for guns, these vile worms would just look for alternative ways to harm their victims, like using a knife to stab someone, or spiking their drink with ricin, or intentionally running over a crowd at high speed. These deaths just happen to occur in the wrong hands, so that's why it's important to count all types of deaths, not just gun deaths specifically. And I also noticed that people claim that guns result in an increase in crime. Well, technically, gun laws only apply to civilians that have no intention to use a gun to cause danger towards others. Banning guns itself actually results in an increase in crime with how it may potentially lead to a rise in black markets and gang-related activities. Actual criminals don't actually care at all if they get charged with an illegal possession of firearms, so it's only the civilians who want to own guns that get harmed by restricted gun laws. It's like in the 1920s when alcohol was banned at the time, black markets and bootlegging have increased and crime lords profit off of alcohol more. Thus, crime actually increases in gun-free zones where unarmed civilians aren't able to protect themselves, and the only parasites that commit gun violence are the ones who possess firearms illegally. It's not the firearms themselves that are the problem, it's the actual individual who is actually pulling the trigger with their own finger. If guns kill people automatically without a finger on the trigger, then so does everything else. And why should gun restrictions only apply to civilians and not the government, huh? That sounds incredibly authoritarian. Like, what if the government sends in armed troops to invade your home without a proper reason? How are you supposed to defend yourself? Let these swarms disturb your peace and hold you ransom? Fuck no! It kind of makes sense for huge events and theme parks to have security where there would be thousands of guests in to enjoy. But like, if you're in a random store with a couple others and some threat decides to pull out a gun and start shooting everywhere, how are you supposed to defend yourself from bullets shattering your bones and organs? Well, I mean, you could try to run away, but the bullet is definitely going to hit you if the shooter has good aim, which just makes you an easier target for them. You could try to conceal your gun in your pocket or bag so it doesn't intimidate anyone sensitive to guns, like pit bulls are to toddlers. But you should still be allowed to carry a gun if there isn't advanced security around. If the shooter plots out a massacre, there are some civilians with guns that can neutralize the shooter easily, to which the shooter doesn't even care about his own life, wasting his pathetic life away in the incinerator. It sucks to see strictest gun laws, like you must do all these BS restricted licenses, like hell, we shouldn't even have licenses to do all these things in the land of the free, except for like driver licenses. I think you should do whatever you want with your guns personally, such as practicing at shooting ranges and hunting, as long as it doesn't harm anyone else. Like I said earlier, gun restrictions don't affect criminals at all. It's we, the civilians, that are the only ones that are affected by it. This isn't equality. It's not fair that the government can use firearms and not us, who could potentially become victims if we ever encounter an armed threat. This is supposed to be the land of the free. We should do whatever we want as long as it doesn't harm other people. There have been accidental deaths from firearms frequently, but most of the time, that should be the responsibility of the owner to keep their guns secured away from those who would use it for the wrong reasons. That's exactly why you should keep your guns hidden away in the safe or anywhere with maximum security away from children or other vulnerable individuals, so it doesn't result in fatalities, like deer crossing the highway in high traffic. A gun is obviously not a toy to play with at all. It's an important tool that should be utilized carefully. Note that I won't be grabbing random articles or graphs to show on here, because I don't trust a lot of them, since many of them can be extremely biased, even if they claim to be 100% neutral. Though, I will still use them, even if I don't trust them, and will form my own opinions on what I think for any topic in general. But anyways, the articles you see online stating that the majority of gun fatalities tend to be accidental, which I don't believe to be wrong at all, to be honest, but that's because the gun owners are very irresponsible with how they handle guns around the house, like a utility lighter in a wooden house filled with propane tanks. These types of gun owners that led to reckless incidents like gun accidents shouldn't even own guns if they're not going to keep them heavily secured and hidden away. The blame shouldn't even be put on those that are actually careful with securing their guns away in the most secured spot possible. Like a stack of gold behind a 2,000-ton golden vault door, surrounded by 1,000-degree lasers and buzzsaws everywhere, with a moat of hungry crocodiles and piranhas, and dispensers that shoot out syringes with lethal injections, and vipers surrounded by bombs, yada yada. Anyways, another ridiculous argument I hear from those against guns is that you should just call the police. Being told to just call the police if an intruder invades your house instead of defending yourself is like saying that fire extinguishers should be illegal and that you should call a fire department instead if there's a small fire that would turn into a huge blaze engulfing your entire house in seconds if not dealt with. Just saying call the police is just so stupid because this is just about a couple seconds of making a decision on how to deal with the threat invading your home. Not waiting a couple minutes for cops to finally arrive to your house, seeing your corpse on the ground unarmed while the threat is nowhere to be found. This could have been easily solved if you just have a loaded gun with you, to take care of the threat, of course. You shouldn't be charged with murder for neutralizing the threat that could have ended your life first. If that's the case, that's just so fucking retarded, and those NPCs who invented that law belong in an asylum. You know what? We need more cow-ridden houses. Fuck charging people with murder for defending themselves. So that's why you should only call the police after you stop the threat to solve the case even further without arresting you. So yeah, call the police is an extremely absurd argument to solve gun violence. Anyways, here's actually the dumbest fucking argument I ever heard. Even worse than the call the police logic. You get a bunch of imbeciles who claim that if you support the idea of owning a gun, you support mass shootings. Like, what the actual fuck is that argument? That's like saying that if you support cutting meat and other food, you support mass stabbings. The most infamous school shooters don't even obtain their guns legally. Most of the school shootings in recent history are 100% influenced from Columbine, the only exception that being Sandy Hook as far as I know. It's clear that majority of the mass shooters just plot out their attacks as a chance to be as notorious as they can, stuck in their echo chambers of actually the worst fucking communities I ever seen. Thus, a lot of mass shooters are literally just Columbine copycats. So no, enforcing gun laws unfortunately won't prevent mass shootings, since these shooters can either fake background checks when purchasing firearms or obtain them illegally. Like I said, guns aren't the problem, it's the individual that's the problem. People kill people, not the guns alone. Eventually, the claim that guns cause school shootings is extremely irrelevant. Anyways, here's the only effective argument about gun control, and that being background checks. This is literally the only good thing I've seen regarding firearms. There's numerous types of people that I don't want armed, such as felons and rowdy individuals who couldn't control themselves, especially drunk drivers or those high on drugs. In fact, background checks should exist to evaluate whether or not they are actually valid to own a gun or not. Unfortunately, those who are able to purchase guns and use it maliciously would just find ways to bypass the background checks. But yeah, background checks should exist just to be safe, so that's the only valid argument against guns. So eventually, you should be allowed to carry a firearm to defend yourself from any armed threats. Just keep them heavily secured in a safe or anywhere else hidden so that they don't fall under the wrong hands and result in fatalities. If gun laws are enforced, only civilians are affected by it. The criminals don't even care about possessing firearms illegally, especially with the black market as well. The guns aren't the problem. The people who carry the guns for malicious motives are the problem themselves, cause if it weren't for guns, they look for alternative weapons to use. I don't want to wait for the police to arrive in minutes when I can just neutralize the intruder in seconds. It's a matter of seconds, not minutes. Background checks are necessary to determine whether they should be allowed with guns or not. So yeah, people should be allowed to do whatever they want with their guns as long as they don't harm anyone else. So see ya.